Today is exactly 6 weeks. 6 weeks since an armed masked figure came to Nancy Guthrie's front door at 1:47 in the morning and took her from the life she had built over 8 decades. 6 weeks since her heart medication was last touched. 6 weeks since her family has heard her voice. 6 weeks since the world has known where she is. And today, on this exact anniversary, a digital forensics expert has revealed something that has been hiding in plain sight since the very first day of this investigation. Something that every outlet has mentioned in passing and nobody has properly explained. Something that could be, in the words of the expert herself, the key to everything. Not the pacemaker, not the doorbell camera, not the DNA, the hearing aids. Specifically, the second pair. The pair that was not left behind on the kitchen counter. The pair that Nancy Guthrie may have been wearing in her ears at the exact moment she was taken. Because if those hearing aids were paired to her phone via Bluetooth, and modern hearing aids almost always are, then somewhere on the phone that investigators have had in their possession since day one is a database, a digital record, a last known location, of exactly where Nancy Guthrie was the moment those hearing aids went dark. And the question that nobody, not a single outlet covering this case, has asked loudly enough is this: do investigators already have that location? And are they holding it close, waiting for exactly the right moment to act on it? Nancy Guthrie was born on January 27, 1942. She turned 84 years old just 4 days before she was taken. She had spent more than 5 decades in Tucson, Arizona, building a quiet, faithful life in the Catalina foothills. She was a woman of deep routine: Sunday church services, regular walks with a neighbor friend, family dinners with her children. She wore hearing aids, a detail that was reported from the very first day of the investigation, when investigators confirmed that one pair of hearing aids had been left behind at her home, alongside her phone, her medication, and her personal belongings. That detail was noted. It was reported. And then, for 6 weeks, it was almost completely ignored, until digital forensics expert Heather Barnhart appeared on Crime Stories with Nancy Grace on March 10th and said something that should have been the headline of every news outlet in America the following morning. It was not. But it is the headline of this episode, and today, on the 6-week anniversary of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, it deserves to be heard properly for the very first time. First question for you right now. When you first heard that Nancy left one pair of hearing aids behind, did you ever think about the possibility that she might have been wearing a second pair? And do you think investigators have already recovered the last known location data from her phone? Drop your answer in the comments. March 15th, 2026, day 43, 6 weeks, Tucson, Arizona. Here is the complete hearing aid story, every detail, every implication, and every reason why this may be the most significant forensic development in the Nancy Guthrie case since the FBI recovered the doorbell camera footage. The technology. Modern hearing aids are not the simple amplification devices of a previous generation. They are sophisticated Bluetooth-connected smart devices, paired to a smartphone exactly as AirPods or wireless headphones would be. They connect to a phone app. They stream audio. They can be used for phone calls and FaceTime. They track location through their pairing connection. And critically, the phone they are paired to maintains a database of their connectivity history. Every time those hearing aids connect to the phone, every time they disconnect, every location where that connection was active is recorded in a database on the paired device. Digital forensics expert Heather Barnhart, a specialist with Celebrite and the SANS Institute, explained it precisely on Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. Think of modern hearing aids as you would AirPods or headphones. Her phone will track everything associated to those hearing aids because they pair through Bluetooth. She continued, if Find My is associated to her device, there is a database on her phone that examiners should be able to look at and see her last known location. It does work really well, and it will show the last known location until the device is no longer active. So if the hearing aids lose a charge, it won't be available anymore. The second pair. Here is the detail that changes everything. Nancy Guthrie left one pair of hearing aids behind at her home, but investigators have now confirmed, and Nancy Grace reported on her show, that Nancy may have owned a second pair, a pair that was not on the kitchen counter, a pair that was not accounted for in the initial evidence collection, a pair that, if she was wearing them in her ears at 1:47 a.m. when that masked figure came to her door, was taken with her. And if those hearing aids were powered and paired to her phone at the moment of the abduction, that phone, which investigators have had since day one, contains a database showing exactly where those hearing aids were when they last connected. That location, whether it is a street in Tucson, a highway heading south toward the border, or a location in Mexico, is sitting on Nancy Guthrie's phone, right now, waiting to be accessed. The critical complication. Barnhart was careful to acknowledge the single most important limitation of the hearing aids theory. The phone was left behind. Without the phone present with Nancy, transmitting its own GPS location, real-time tracking of the hearing aids is impossible. But here is what Barnhart said next, and what nobody has quoted properly. The fact that her phone is left behind
I'm sure investigators looked to see if they could ping that and get a location. And they either did, and they're holding that close to them, or they fell short. Read that again. She either did, and they're holding it close to them, or they fell short. Those are the only two possibilities, and one of them means that investigators have known Nancy Guthrie's last known location since the very first week of this investigation, and have not said so publicly, because they are waiting, because revealing that location would alert the suspect, because the arrest is closer than anyone knows. Then came the detail that the entire internet exploded over this week, and that I need to address directly and carefully. An alleged eyewitness, speaking through a security consultant on the same Crime Stories with Nancy Grace episode, claimed to have seen Nancy Guthrie south of the Mexican border with individuals believed to be her abductors. The consultant said, "We have an eyewitness claiming that they saw Nancy Guthrie south of the border with the alleged kidnappers. They're very serious about knowing it was Nancy." The consultant then added the detail that immediately raised every red flag in my mind. This alleged eyewitness wants 1 Bitcoin, worth approximately $70,000, before revealing further information about her location. 1 Bitcoin, for a name, from a person claiming to have seen an 84-year-old American woman being held in Mexico. This is either the most significant tip in the entire investigation, or it is the most cynical exploitation of families' grief that I have seen in 6 weeks of covering this case. And based on the pattern we have already established, the hoax ransom notes, the Derek Calicella fraud charge, the information seller demanding 1 Bitcoin through the original ransom channels, I know which one I believe it is, but I will let you decide. Second question. An alleged eyewitness claims to have seen Nancy in Mexico, but is demanding 1 Bitcoin before revealing details. Do you think this is a credible lead or another exploitation attempt? Drop your theory in the comments. The public response to today's 6-week anniversary has been the most emotionally unified reaction of the entire investigation. The Tucson community filled the sidewalk outside Nancy's home with candles, flowers, and hand-painted signs. Artist Donna Pruce, known as Pinky, has now painted more than a dozen canvas pieces that line the tribute site. Savannah Guthrie posted on Instagram today with her siblings Annie and Tomasano, a handwritten card placed among the flowers outside their mother's home reading, "Though we are surrounded by so much darkness and uncertainty, our love burns bright. We love you, Mommy. We miss you so much." Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer posted on social media that she believes investigators are close to an arrest, a statement she based on the investigative posture and the nature of the forensic evidence being processed. And former U.S. Marshal and border expert Robert Almonte, who has been following the Mexican angle closely, confirmed that the FBI's outreach to Sonora authorities is ongoing and active. My personal opinion, the hearing aid story is the most underreported development in this entire case. Not because the technology is new, but because of what Barnhart said about investigators either having the location data and holding it close, or having fallen short. That distinction matters enormously. If investigators have a last known location from those hearing aids, and they are holding it close, then everything we are seeing right now makes perfect sense. The methodical pace, the sheriff's confidence, the statement that beliefs from day one have not diminished, the warning that the suspect could strike again, not because they are at large and unidentified, but because they are identified and not yet in custody. All of it fits the profile of an investigation that knows exactly where it is going, and is moving carefully to get there without alerting the target. Psychologically, the 6-week mark in a missing persons case is what criminologists call a critical threshold, the point at which public attention begins to fade, media coverage begins to thin, and the pressure on the suspect begins to ease. The FBI and the Guthrie family both know this, which is why the family's continued public presence, the Instagram posts, the flowers, the handwritten cards, is not just grief, it is strategy. Every post keeps Nancy Guthrie's name in the news cycle. Every mention keeps the public engaged. Every share of this video keeps the reward money relevant to someone who might be sitting on information they have not yet decided to give up. The 6-week mark is not the beginning of the end of this investigation. It is the moment when the people who know something are most vulnerable to the pressure of a $1 million reward and the weight of what they are carrying. And pressure, applied consistently and publicly, eventually finds the crack it is looking for. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for exactly 6 weeks today. Her hearing aids, potentially still in her ears, may contain the last known location data that could break this case wide open. Her pacemaker, still beating somewhere, is being searched for by signal sniffer drones. Her DNA, recovered from her home, is being analyzed in a Florida laboratory. Her phone, left behind on her kitchen counter, is a database of every digital breadcrumb from the night she was taking. The combined reward stands at $1.2 million. The FBI tip line has received over 30,000 calls. And today, 6 weeks in, Sheriff Chris Nanos remains confident. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer believes arrest is close. And somewhere, in a laboratory, in a database, in a location stored on a phone, in the battery life of a hearing aid that may still be holding its charge, Nancy Guthrie is waiting to be found. And here is the question I need you to sit with on this 6-week anniversary. The one that the hearing aids, the phone database, and Heather Barnhart's carefully chosen words all point toward without anyone saying it directly. Investigators have had Nancy Guthrie's phone since day one. That phone contains a database of every Bluetooth device she owned, her pacemaker, her hearing aids, her last known locations. If those hearing aids were powered and paired when she was taken, and investigators access that database, then somewhere in this investigation there is a piece of information that has never been made public. And the only reason to hold that information close, for 6 full weeks, is because acting on it requires perfect timing. So here's what I want to ask you tonight. Do you think investigators already know where Nancy Guthrie is? And are they waiting for exactly the right moment to bring her home? Drop everything you are thinking in the comments right now. Do you believe the hearing aids hold the key? Do you think investigators already have the last known location data? And do you believe, 6 weeks in, that Nancy Guthrie is still alive? I read every single comment, because today is 6 weeks, and the world needs to keep asking questions until she comes home. If you have any information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, please contact the FBI immediately at 1-800-CALL-FBI or 520-351-490 or visit tips.fbi.gov. Submit security footage through the PCSD evidence submission portal. The combined reward is $1.2 million. Nancy deserves to come home.